It's that time again, but this time it's Meridian.
Next tonight, the Home Secretary has been repeatedly asked today by a committee of MPs how the Navy will be used to deal with migrants crossing the Channel, and repeatedly she has refused to answer. She said the strategy and tactics are still being worked out.
Priti Patel also got into a row with the French president, who today blamed Britain for the small boats crisis. Phil Hornby reports.
President Macron didn't use diplomatic language. There's no legal immigration route to Britain, he said. Britain's responsible for the deaths of migrants in the Channel. Britain's immigration policy is hypocritical. The Home Secretary's response wasn't exactly diplomatic either.
Macron's comments are wrong. They're absolutely wrong. So let me be very, very clear about that. Those comments are they're just wrong.
Next, what about the role of the military in the Channel? Will they intercept small boats? Will they push them back?
And quite frankly, it's not for me to comment on the tactics that they'll be using or the approach that they'll be using. That work is taking place, so I'm not going to comment on operational planning.
But hold on, said the MPs. This is what a Defence Minister told the Commons 3 weeks ago.
Neither the Royal Navy nor the Royal Marines will be engaged in pushback. The Royal Navy won't be directly involved in the interception of ships.
Are you saying that the Armed Forces Minister was wrong in what he said? Has he misled Parliament? No, he hasn't misled Parliament. He was wrong in what he said because it hadn't been decided. Well, at that stage, in terms of the timing, he has absolutely not misled anybody.
The MPs were none the wiser. So they returned to the subject of France, which is where, one Sussex MP says, the solution to this problem lies.
The French are not arresting them. They are not, as they should be, and we are paying for, taking them to their processing centres to see what their status is, and then dealing with them, which remains the nub of the problem.
Well said.
In these committee sessions, there were far more questions than answers. And still, the small boats keep coming.
And Phil, a lot of Tory MPs seem pretty unconvinced by the idea of using the military to deal with the small boats.
Yeah, they think this was announced in a panic without being thought through. And one of the biggest critics of the government today became the latest Tory MP to say Boris Johnson should resign.
Huge damage has been done with the nation on the trust level. This is being watched internationally, and we're not able to make the big decisions, both on the domestic and on the international stage, because this is dominating so much. So I've decided that we can't go on this way.
Meanwhile, there is a by-election tomorrow in Southend West. I shouldn't think many Tories will be standing
Come on,
up to
Steve.
the result because they should win it quite easily. The other main opposition parties, Labour and the Liberal Democrats, not standing against them because of the circumstances of the election. And I think if Labour and the Lib Dems did stand, I think those Tories going to bed tomorrow night would be having nightmares, because what is a very safe Tory seat would look very unsafe. But the Tories should win it easily.
Phil, live in Westminster, thank you.
Well, let's look a bit more closely at that Southend West by-election now in seat which was represented by Sir David Amess.
Labour and the Lib Dems aren't standing, and as John Ryle found out today, some voters in the city are wishing there was more of a contest.
But firstly, I want to say sorry. And I'm sorry.
With the Prime Minister and Conservative support taking a battering over Partygate and electoral shocks like the Liberal Democrats' by-election victory in North Shropshire, some say there is currently no such thing as a safe Tory seat. Except here, perhaps, in the constituency of Southend West, where in tomorrow's by-election the Conservative candidate will run unchallenged by the other major parties, facing only 8 fringe candidates, a mark of respect to Sir David Amess and a convention set following the murder of the Labour MP Joe Cox in 2016. But some say it's the wrong move, and at the moment this should have been a traditional full-on contest.
There is immense sadness at the death of Sir David Amess. He was very popular. And instinctively I think it's reasonable to an extent for people to use their sadness at that in order to say that the election shouldn't be a proper contest, that we should suspend the normal nature of democracy and award the seat to an anointed successor. I think That's not the point, however. Democracy isn't dependent on one person. It's not in the gift of one party. And to have an election without a contest is not to have an election. It's to have a fake synthetic election.
So here in Leigh-on-Sea, the heart of the constituency where Sir David Amess was so popular, what do voters make of the Tory candidate Anna Firth running unopposed by all major parties?
I think the other parties are very wise because David Amess was greatly respected down here for all he did.
I would have preferred a traditional contest, to be honest with you. Yeah, absolutely.
He's been having parties at the same time as my wife was dying in hospital and I couldn't visit. So she died alone. And I'm very unhappy about that. And I won't be voting as a protest. And I've been a lifelong Conservative supporter.
The shock at the killing of Sir David Amess is still raw here, and the result of this by-election is really not in any doubt. But some Tories angered by Partygate will protest by not voting at all, by spoiling ballot papers, or by voting for one of the 8 marginal candidates who are standing. And those are the numbers the pundits will be poring over after tomorrow's votes have been counted. John Ryle, ITV News, Southend.
And here is a list of all of the candidates.
There he is. Oh, Jada Franson's going up.
Alphabetical order. Voting
Yes,
opens tomorrow at 7 a.m, bright and early, and the polling closes at 10 p.m. tomorrow night.
Right, it's sport time now.
Good luck, Steve.
Andrew Pates here.